Hey guys, it's Steven Slate, and I am very proud to be showing you the newest in the Slate Digital analog modeled virtual line. It's called the Virtual Preamp Collection. So we've modeled a lot of analog gear from tape machines and EQs and consoles and compressors, but this is the first preamp emulation that we are releasing. And so we chose two of the most famous and classic preamps in the history of recording. So the FG73 models the famous discrete solid-state British preamp. It's been used on, so many records that's kind of impossible to imagine. It's bold, it's thick, it's warm, it sounds present, and it's pretty much incredible on everything from drums to vocals. Really everything. The FG76 is modeled after a famous old classic tube preamp. Now, this is what was used to record some of the most classic albums by bands like, the Beatles, However, you still see a lot of these preamps in pro studios even today. Now, the first thing I'm going to say about the modeling process of these preamp emulations is that our Fabrice Gabriel-led design team went absolutely insane, making sure that no stone was left unturned when it came to, recreating the tone of these famous circuits. So we studied the circuits, we measured the response, and quite meticulously, and we found some amazing little quirks in the circuit response that, are part of the reason they sound the way they do. Now, as with all Slate Digital models, the algorithm is completely dynamic. And that means it recreates the nonlinear dynamic response of the hardware. And it's not just some static gunk that sounds the same regardless of the incoming signal. This thing really breathes and responds dynamically just like the actual circuit will. So the VPC was actually created for our virtual microphone system, and the algorithms were created to be paired with our VMS1 Ultra linear mic preamp. Now that's a preamp design that is really flat and high bandwidth in linear, so when you add the dynamic virtual preamp emulation tone to the linear signal, it sounds just like the audio was recorded with the famous preamps. Now that leads to the question, what if you don't have the VMS1 preamp? What does this plugin do for you? And that's what this video is going to answer for you. So let's start with part one, which is adding analog vibe to clean preamps. So a lot of you out there have an interface that comes with preamps. And while these might not be as flat and high bandwidth as the VMS1 preamps, they're probably still some decent IC-based preamps. They're probably pretty clean, and they probably do a good job. But again, what's the biggest difference between many of these onboard interface preamps and the classic preamps used to record your favorite albums? Well, it's that classic color and vibe that the famous hardware preamps add. That's why they're so sought after. It's that famous color and tone. So here's first an example of some tracks that were recorded with a fairly cheap interface that has some onboard preamps. That sounds okay. It's a little bit flat. It's kind of on the boring side. So I'm going to put a bunch of FG73s and FG76s on the drums. And then let's put a FG76 on the DI bass. So this knob is called the virtual drive. And it's very important to understand because it sets the overall tone of the virtual preamp circuit. As you increase the virtual drive, it simulates the action of increasing the preamp input gain while attenuating the internal output trim. So it's basically like cranking the preamp without adding more volume. Now, this is something engineers have done with the real preamps since the dawn of audio. And the reason they do it is because you can find a gain-staged sweet spot where the input amplifier is being pushed just right for the given audio source. So the more you push it, the more you're going to hear the amplifier character until it goes into full-fledged saturation. So you'll want to set the virtual drive for most stuff somewhere in the left hemisphere, because once you go past 12 o'clock and that overload light starts flashing, then it really becomes a distortion and saturation effect, which is awesome, and we're going to hear that later in the video. But for now, we just want to add tone. So let's put everything at 10 o'clock. I think that's generally a good starting point because you'll hear it add some amazing character. Now let's take a listen to what this cheap interface recording sounds like with the preamp emulations on all the tracks. So assuming that you're listening on some good headphones or your studio speakers, you're hearing something that just sounds much fatter, more focused, it's more present. The low-mid boxiness just kind of went away. It's a pretty awesome change. So let's do an A-B, first wet, then dry. And that's pretty incredible. So let's move on to some more mixing tricks. So the VPC can be used as a really effective color and tone tool for any tracks or even full mixes. I'll even put this on a master. Now, some of you who own some of our other plugins like Virtual Console Collection may wonder how the preamps can be used with it. And the answer is that there are no rules. So here's a mix with no VCC or preamps.
I've hit right bottom again, you know where and then. I don't know what else to say. Oh, I'll pop another pill because I'm feeling ill. Tomorrow's a brand new day. Oh.
So now we add the VCC on every channel and the mix bus version on the master fader. So these are all on the Brit 4KE setting. So that's already going to sound pretty sweet, but now let's go one step further. I'm going to add the FG76 to some of the drums and the drum bus. I'll also put that on the vocals and bass, and then I'm going to put the FG73 on the whole mix. Now this is in addition to the VCC. So, we're adding color from the Virtual Console Collection, and we're adding color from the preamps. And, there's just no rules. So we just want to add some vibe and color. So let's take a listen to the addition of the preamps and the VCC. We'll first hear it wet, and then we'll hear it dry.
I've hit right bottom again, you know where and then. I don't know what else to say. Oh, I'll pop another pill because I'm feeling ill. Tomorrow's a brand new day. Oh.
And so again, the difference is pretty phenomenal. This, with the plugins on, it just sounds like a more analog, vibey, and pleasant mix. It's just easier on the ears. As soon as you bypass everything, it just sounds kind of flat and boring and digital, and we don't like that. We want the tone and the vibe. So let's move on to some special effects. So as I said in the beginning, we modeled every aspect of the preamp circuit, even into deep saturation and distortion. And the distortion effects can be very musical and useful in mixing. So let's use it to enhance the snare drum and bass guitar from this previous mix. So first, what we're going to do is copy the snare. And then as you can see, we have a VCC, we have the FGN EQ, we have a trim module, and then we have the FG73 preamp. Okay, now check this out. I'm going to crank the virtual drive all the way up till it distorts. And then I'm going to use the EQ to push more of the harmonic frequencies into it to get this thing sounding really big. So let's listen to it soloed. I know what you're thinking, that just sounds gorgeous. No, actually, you're probably thinking it sounds really ugly, but listen to what happens when I start to mix that distorted snare fader in with the dry snare in the mix.
I've hit right bottom again, you know where and then. I don't know what else to say. Oh, I'll pop another pill because I'm feeling ill. Tomorrow's a brand new day. Oh.
Wow, now the overall snare sound is so much bigger and deeper. It's just got more personality, you know? So we'll do the same thing for the bass with the FG76. I've got a copy of the bass track here with an instance of the FG76 preamp. I'm going to crank the virtual drive and then EQ a ton of mid from the EQ into the preamp. And let's take a listen to just the distorted version. You know what? Let's go a little bit off script and do something a bit zany, because I actually want even more distortion. I'm just a fiend today. So now we're going to actually add the FG73. So the preamps are now back to back, and let's crank that sucker too, and then push a ton more mids from the FGN, and let's take a listen to that. So this sounds really distorted, but in a great way. So we're going to mix that in subtly with the dry bass and take a listen to the wet version and then bypass it.
I've hit right bottom again, you know where I've been. I don't know what else to say. Oh, I'll pop another pill because I'm feeling ill. Tomorrow's a brand new day. Oh, spit out in my shoes, and you know the blues, and you'll begin to pray. Your hypocrisy, our love's democracy, will soon be washed away.
And that just sounds huge. I mean, you can really hear the difference that makes with the bass sound and the guitar sound. You can hear all those little, bass notes. All the harmonics are cutting through. The snare still sounds big and fat. And this is a fairly common pro parallel processing trick that top engineers have used for decades. So we heard the VPC on mostly rock tracks, but if you do dance music, if you do hip hop, if you do folky acoustic stuff, the same tone principles apply. And I think you'll get a lot of love out of this bundle. As usual, you can get the Virtual Preamp Collection as part of our Everything bundle, which includes all of our award-winning plugins for $24 a month or $299 annually, or you can purchase them as a permanent license for $149. And thanks for watching, and as usual, happy mixing.